Hey, all right, so I'm back. Number 8, painful exit process. Um, Exit process is when you are trying to figure out how to leave. You've identified that yes, I this is not healthy. This is an abusive church, and you're sitting there trying to figure out how do I leave? Should I leave? What should I do? If you are afraid to leave a church because of intimidation, pressure, threats of divine judgment. You're backslidden. You're a heathen. You're going to get shunned. Like you are just petrified of how you're going to be treated and where your soul is going to end up uh, because you exit this particular organization, this particular church. Um, then that is a painful part of the painful exit process, and it's probably one of the a flag that yes, you are part of a spiritual abusive church. um, and so you quite possibly can be harassed, tried to be persuaded to stay by the church, even bribed, even control damage. They just begin to pour on so much love and apologize and try to still subtly persuade you to stick with it, stick with us, stick with me. This is I'm going to do this, and make empty promises and stuff. You can be prepared to be, publicly humiliated and, ridiculed by the church or before the church. All these things, are part of the exit process, unfortunately. You will even be made to feel like you are leaving God if you leave this church. You're losing your faith. If you dare, how dare you leave us? How dare you um, feel like you don't need us anymore? You'll feel isolation. You're very fearful of the world. You may, get some anxiety and stuff because of this type of attack. That you'll, or some of it can be self-inflicted. To be quite honest with you, because as you are awakening from the abuse and you start to peel back layers, you realize that um, you're trying to reconnect. You're trying to reconnect to God. You're trying to reconnect to the world, and so the whole process, it can be quite painful. And so um, if you're scared of all of that, and you're not really able to, I guess, handle all of that, you could cause you to stay. I mean, just honestly, you'll just stay because you don't want to go through the process, and you'll just sit there. It's what we call freeze. Um, I'll talk about that in a later video. You know, when you are awakened and to you start to determine how you're going to exit. Um, you have three choices: freeze, fight, and flight. And so some people go through all three of those phases before they actually exit. And so you can freeze. You can be frozen, paralyzed by fear of doing anything, making any kind of decision. And a bit of paranoia will sit into the spiritual abuser when you're going through this phase, because they assume that you're plotting and you're talking behind their back and whatnot. And so the trust between the leader and the people begin to break down. And once you have enough of the control, enough of the manipulation, you will, and paranoia, it'll produce, you know, produce you to, or force you to make a decision. And you'll either leave on your own, or you will eventually um, be dismissed or kicked out, because you will be made to feel so uncomfortable that you'll just leave on your own. You'll just eventually just go. You know, they'll force you to make a decision if you don't make one, because they don't know where you stand. A spiritual abuser, a leader who is very control oriented, needs to know where you stand. Who is your allegiance to? And if they can't figure that out, and they think that it's not for them, then they'll help you. They'll help you make a decision, because you can't. They won't allow you to sit under them and make them uncomfortable, or make them uncomfortable in their own house, not God's house, in their own house, in their kingdom. So be prepared, for that. The pastor will start calling. If he's not sure where you stand, he'll start calling, messaging you, asking for meetings, to try to figure out where you are, to try to reconcile with you. It's just you need to be very, very aware of what's happening and what's going on around you, and to some extent you need to be afraid, because the last thing you need to be defending is your faith to a spiritual abuser. Trust me. I've talked to my husband about this many, many, many nights, and a lot of times, we respect spiritual leaders, and so we try to handle them with respect, and you just don't want to, I'm trying to say this in the right way, you don't want to, a lot of people honors the position of the fivefold ministry, whether you are an evangelist, a prophet, a pastor, teacher, whatever. Most people honor that, and so nobody looks to go and devalue or attack someone who carries that calling on their life. So when you get into the position where you're trying to exit, most people are trying to be respectful in that. So that people, they know that spiritual abusers know that, and so they know that they already almost have an advantage, head up. They have an advantage on you when they meet with you, call you, message you, email you, whatever, and so they'll use that to their advantage to manipulate you into doing what they want you to do. And if they, you just have to be very careful of when you enter into some sort of conversation or meeting with an abuser. You have to know your boundaries. You have to know what you can handle and what you can't handle, and be prepared, for what's to come from that. And I had someone ask me, have you forgiven your spiritual abuser? Have you forgiven him? Them, however you want to say it. And it was a tough question, because I really hadn't thought about it. Had I forgiven them? Because I knew I was still angry, and so I wasn't really sure. And then I said, the man is irrelevant. I have forgiven the man. I had to seek God and get some understanding of this before I could answer it. But I really feel sorry for the man that abused. I feel sorry for his family. I feel sorry for the leaders, and I'm sorry. I mean, I do. I've prayed. I've prayed many hours, and I still pray for this ministry. I devoutly pray for this ministry, because I have a great love for a lot of the people there. And I'm commanded to pray. I'm commanded to love, my enemies. So, yeah, I've forgiven the man because I really think that I don't know that he even understands the magnitude of what he's doing. So, yeah, I forgive the man. I really do. Um, but he has a spirit of Antichrist on him. And so, um, my question was, well, when the enemy is in operation, when the devil is in operation, do you forgive the devil or do you wage war against the devil? What are you called to do? Like, I do forgive the man. That doesn't mean I'm going to allow him to keep abusing me, number one. And that's not to say that I'm going to allow him to keep getting away with it in my vicinity. If I know something and I can be a bearer of truth, and honor God in the way that I'm called to honor him, then, I'm a wage war against the enemy who is trying to devour the sheep in such a manipulative way. And, so, I just, that's just the way I see it. And that's the way I feel like what God has called me to do. That's not everybody's, plight. That ain't everybody's thing. And that's okay. Some people just secretly walk out the door and don't say nothing and you never know why they left. But Rebecca, cannot sit back consciously and watch people think that they're crazy and think that something's wrong with them and continually be broken down, bent, and their critical thinking be twisted and torn and warped, and in such a way that if they were ever to lose that man or that church, that they would not be able to stand on the word of God and have a sounding foundational relationship with God by themselves. Because they've put everything into a man. So it's that simple for me. It really is that simple for me. Call it what you want. I've been through too much. I've experienced too much. Sometimes all you have left after you've done everything you can do is your integrity and is your morals and your values, and your convictions. And I'm just not going to compromise them just so I can say I'm an elder or say that I work somewhere, or in full. No, not this one. Not this one. Sorry, can't do it. Number 9, a spiritual leader is more vocal about taking the nation, taking the country or the city for Jesus than loving individual people and doing more local community events. That's another characteristic. Okay. God's love for the world from the platform, it's huge. It's, from the pulpit, it's, we're out to reach a nation. We want to reach the Judea. We want to reach the world, whatnot. But you can't simply love your neighbor enough to break bread with them or, do partnership with, social services or homeless shelters or, other churches to feed homeless, to do, clothes drives, or, you can't do things like that on a regular, like it's, but they want to save the world, no. Mm-mm. Starts at home, always starts at home. And it's not just talk, you action. Okay? Starts at home. Number 10, family members fill key jobs in the church. That's another big one. you'll notice that church positions will come quicker. There'll be perks for the family, whatnot. That's a big one in any spiritual abusive church. They try to keep things close and in house and controlled. Moving on to number 11.